Let me show you what can be achieved in 4 weeks when you set some specific fat loss rules, stick to them, and stay disciplined. I didn't run this experiment as a fitness professional. I did it as an average 39-year-old husband, father of 2 young kids, and someone that works full-time outside of the fitness industry. Earlier in the year, we just had the birth of our second daughter. I had some holiday time with the family, and I put on some extra weight. So I set myself a challenge. For 4 weeks, I would run a 1,000 calorie daily deficit. I decided to record everything this time around, as I wanted to give a demonstration as to what the process looks like and hopefully encourage others to try something similar. I want to show you that this process doesn't have to be complicated. It comes down to some very basic rules. If you stick to them, you'll see results. This isn't a one-size-fits-all plan, and it's not a prescription. It's just an honest demonstration of what I did and how it went. For many people, a smaller deficit is more sustainable, but for the sake of the experiment, I stuck strictly to the 1,000 calorie deficit for the full 4 weeks. Here's what we'll cover in this video: an assessment of my progress throughout the 28 days and the final outcomes, the ground rules I followed, accountability systems that kept me on track, the discussion on the challenges I faced, and the key lessons I learned from the process. Before we get started, I just wanted to reach out to you on a more personal level. The rest of the video is a bit more scripted, partly because I'm rubbish at remembering my lines, so I need to be prompted. I speak to many people, friends, family, and quite often guys around my age are facing this dilemma in life where they have a challenge fitting it all in. You've got work, you've got family, maybe you've got kids, you've got a mortgage, you've got paperwork, you've got a wife, you've got things on, and sometimes we only have a certain amount of willpower, and other things in life can absorb that energy, and we often let our health slip because the impacts of letting our health slip may not affect us directly in a more immediate sense. Things may come later down the road. So, with everything else in life, sometimes you want to feel energized for your family. You want to feel satisfied from your eating. You want to enjoy the social aspect of eating. And it almost feels like, I deserve to look after myself. And what the result can be is you gradually put weight on over time. And this is not ideal. So the way I see it is, this is something that I like to manage so that I can grow old in a healthy way. I can inspire my daughters to look after themselves and maybe end up with someone who looks after themselves. So look, I've rambled on, but I just really encourage anyone who's intimidated, worried, scared to get started, or just doesn't know exactly how to get started, please reach out. I'd be happy to help. It would give me joy to see you start to kick goals. I'd be happy to help you get there. Much of what I cover in this video will be expanded on in more detail in later videos, so just apologies if any of my commentary feels a little bit thin in parts. So let's get into it. I wanted to cover off on my results first, so you can see what I achieved, then we'll dive further into the process. Over the 28 days, I lost 15 pounds or 6.8 kilograms and dropped from around 15 to 17% body fat to around 10 to 12%. On screen, you'll see charts tracking both body weight and approximated body fat percentage over the 4 weeks. It's safe to assume not all the weight lost was fat. A good chunk was water and possibly some muscle. What matters the most here is the overall downtrend over the 28 days. I stuck closely to my rules, so I was happy to see a consistent decline over the 4 weeks. You'll notice the chart tracking my weight isn't perfectly linear. That was expected because day to day, your weight can fluctuate quite rapidly. This is due to several reasons, including changes in water retention, changes in your gut content, and changes in the general inflammation levels in your body. This should not be mistaken for rapid changes in your body fat. As expected, we see a steep drop in week 1 due to the reductions in water retention that people commonly see in the early phases of a weight loss program. This is followed by a steady decline in weight as my body utilized its fat stores to make up for the caloric deficit that I was in. Towards the end of the challenge, you'll see the line starts to flatten out. I was nearing my leanest shape as an adult at that point, and I'd been pushing hard for the 4 weeks, so I was likely just a little bit fatigued, and my body probably just needed a bit of a pause to adjust. For tracking and analyzing my body fat percentage, I used AI photo analysis through ChatGPT. I know it's not perfect, but it's quite consistent and extremely convenient. I would screenshot my daily tracking videos, upload them into AI, then ask for an analysis. The goal here wasn't pinpoint accuracy, but just a basic tracking of the trend. On screen, you'll now see some of my progress photos and videos comparing day 1 through to day 28. You'll have to mind my appearance in these videos. They were taken first thing in the morning. Logging these changes daily helped me stay accountable. It wasn't about obsessing over every number, it was about building momentum and reminding myself that every day counted. That's what the process produced: clear, measurable results built on consistency and discipline. I'll now share more about the methods that made it work. For all 28 days, I maintained the consistent 1,000 calorie deficit. If you spend some time online running through all of the most popular and effective fat loss strategies historically, you'll find that they have one thing in common, and this is a sustained energy deficit. To set this deficit up, I first had to establish my total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE, which is basically the number of calories you burn in a day on average. This is influenced primarily by your age, weight, height, activity levels, and how much muscle you carry. Using several online calculators and a more detailed analysis with ChatGPT, I estimated my average daily expenditure landed somewhere between 2,900 and 3,200 calories. To keep things conservative and to give this experiment the best chance of success, I used the lower end of that range at 2,900. That meant capping my daily calorie intake at 1,900 calories. And this is a target that I achieved every single day whilst maintaining consistent activity levels over the 4 weeks. If you're interested in establishing your own TDEE, I've linked an example of a free online calculator in the video description. I'd also encourage you to use a combination of the available online calculators along with AI tools like ChatGPT to come up with a more accurate range. And be sure to prompt any AI to include all 4 elements of TDEE. Before I get into how I ate, I want to emphasize that the primary goal of whatever I did in terms of eating in a day, the one thing that mattered most is that I stuck to my 1,900 calorie intake cap in order to maintain my calorie deficit. I primarily ate 2 meals a day with little to no snacking in between. The 2-meal setup wasn't a fat loss hack, I don't think. It just made adherence easier for me, and the key driver was the deficit. My first meal was at 11 a.m. Until then, I only had black coffee, black tea, or water. I kept this first meal protein focused, as I personally felt better saving most of my carbs for dinner. Saying that, plenty of people prefer spreading their carbs across the day. Dinner is our family meal, usually at around 5 p.m. That's a little earlier than most people, but it works well with young kids, and that's when we like to sit down and eat together as a family. For food choices, I focused on whole nutrient-dense options that kept me full and supported recovery. I sourced proteins primarily from eggs, fish, chicken, beef, and all of the typical animal proteins. I utilized a mix of fruits and vegetables with apples, bananas, potatoes, and sweet potatoes, usually my go-tos. The goal was to keep meals simple, satisfying, filling, and nutrient-dense while staying below the 1,900 calorie cap. One staple of my diet that wouldn't be considered as whole food is my desserts. I have a sweet tooth and I love dessert, so I replace a normal higher calorie dessert with a frozen skyr yogurt, high in protein, low in calories, tastes fantastic, and freezing it before consumption makes it feel more like a dessert than just a normal container of yogurt. I strongly suggest finding relatively low-calorie replacement options for dessert, as this is a part of our intake that we are wired to enjoy, but if we're not careful, it can blow our calories out for the day. Regarding my macros, I aimed for a relatively balanced split between proteins, carbs, and fats. For protein intake, I aimed for around 1 gram per pound of body weight, or 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. For me, that worked out to be roughly 150 grams of protein per day, which was key for preserving muscle mass, supporting recovery, and keeping my appetite and satiety hormones in balance. Research shows that 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is sufficient to preserve muscle while in a deficit. I averaged around 150 to 200 grams of carbs per day, and despite what some people online say about eliminating carbs, this didn't hold me back at all. In fact, I found that maintaining a sufficient carb intake was crucial in maintaining my energy levels across the 28 days. The real driver for my fat loss appears to have been the consistent calorie deficit, not avoiding any specific macronutrient. When it comes to training, I want to keep the message really simple. You don't need a complicated program to see results. You don't need to feel intimidated by the volume of information that is out there. What matters most is you're staying active in a way that works for you. During these 28 days, I focused on what I enjoy and what gives me the results I'm after, which is from a mix of resistance training and walking, really. For me, that means primarily body weight exercises like push-ups, pull-ups, dips, and squats. Combined with stair or flat ground walking. That is literally all I did. Pretty much all I have done for years, and it's likely what I will continue to do. Fits with my life, I enjoy it, I can stay consistent with it, and it yields positive results. One thing I want to emphasize is that I didn't train at a crazy high intensity. I like to keep my training intentional, but also sustainable. I like to train in a way that I could potentially continue to train for decades. I like to split my training between home workouts and outdoor workouts, usually at an outdoor forest gym down the road. Doing it this way, instead of heading off to the gym, it just gives me an extra level of convenience, saves some time, and I enjoy the outdoor setting. I like to break my activity into smaller pieces throughout the day. A 10 to 15 minute session at home before work in the morning, a 30-minute session after work before I pick my eldest daughter up from school, and another 10 to 15 minute session at night once the kids are in bed and the house is settled down. I find the 2 short workouts early in the morning and later in the evening are crucial to my routine and success. I see them as sort of bookending my day. The workout first thing in the morning feels like it's kick-starting my body into gear after the night's rest, but balancing out my hormones, kick-starting my circulation, and waking me up mentally. This workout may be as straightforward as doing 100 push-ups in as little time as possible, followed by 100 bodyweight squats. I like to keep it simple and repeatable. Same thing goes for my evening workout. It's usually as simple as 100 push-ups and 100 bodyweight squats, split out however I want to do it while I'm sitting in front of the TV with the wife, or just getting things done around the house. Splitting my training up like this made my output more manageable, as I often can't get away for one large block of time to fit it all in one workout. I trained every day, just as the style and intensity of my workouts allows for it. I understand that many people like to take days off from training, but I like my daily routines and I don't ever feel overtrained, so I just keep on doing it. I also tracked my steps during this challenge, aiming for a minimum of 10,000 a day. This was just a tool I use for the experiment, and it's not something I'm overly strict on usually. Step counting is a very effective way to track your activity levels, but you don't need to chase a number if it doesn't suit you. The real goal is to make sure your activity levels stay high in a way that fits your life. My encouragement to you is this: don't overcomplicate your training. Find movements you enjoy, make them a regular part of your life, and just stick at it. In future videos, I'll go into more detail about exactly what I did or what I do. But for now, I just want you to know that the key is consistency, not perfection. For tracking, I was ticking off a few boxes every day. First thing in the morning, I weighed myself before eating or drinking. I would also take a quick progress video where I would turn to show all sides of my body as I presented earlier, always from the same position in my laundry for consistency. For calories, I tracked every input carefully. I was consistent reading labels when food packaging allowed for it. At home, I weighed my food and calculated accurately using ChatGPT for calorie guidance on certain foods if I couldn't find the information. When I was eating out, I leaned on AI tools to help. If I didn't know the menu in advance, I could take a photo of the menu on the spot and AI would still give me a good guide as to what the best choices were. As an extra layer of analysis when eating out, I often took photos of meals and asked AI to analyze the approximate macros for me. I would start by giving a brief description of the meal. I would add a photo to the chat. I would even add a fork or something else in the photo next to the meal and ask AI to use it as a size reference. I would always use the higher end of any range that ChatGPT gave, as I found that the tool would often lean towards underestimating rather than overestimating. It wasn't perfect, but by using these strategies as guidance, I felt confident I was staying consistent without stressing over every detail. All my macros were logged in a conversation with ChatGPT every day. Some people like to use specialized tracking apps, but for me, a conversation with ChatGPT suited well. I also signed what I called a personal contract each morning, just a simple note in my phone with my calorie goal for the day and my exercise targets. It might sound a little quirky, but it was my way of locking in what needed to be done for the day. More than anything, these little daily rituals just kept me accountable. They reminded me of the bigger picture, gave me feedback on my progress, and just stopped me from drifting off course. Tracking doesn't have to look exactly like this for you. Maybe you'll prefer an app or maybe just an AI conversation, but the key is finding a system that keeps you honest with yourself and is as accurate as possible. The main driver of my results was the calorie deficit, but if you're curious about what I added in to support the process, here's what I did. Each morning, I started the day with about 1 litre to 1.5 litres of water with a pinch of sea salt. This not only helped with hydration, but it also seemed to curb early hunger. Black coffee and black tea were staples for me. 0 calories, they help take the edge off the hunger, and there's evidence that caffeine in moderation can boost focus, support performance, and assist in the fat loss process. Before dinner, I'd mix electrolytes and creatine into my water. Electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and magnesium, they help keep fluid balance and muscle function steady, which is important when you're training and eating in a calorie deficit. Creatine is one of the most well-studied supplements out there for supporting strength, recovery, and even cognitive performance. With dinner, I took a few basics: vitamin D, a multivitamin, and some additional magnesium, just to cover the gaps and make sure I was supporting my body whilst being in the deficit. And throughout the day, I made a conscious effort to stay on top of water consumption. Most days I was close to 4 litres or around 1 gallon a day. The obstacles to fat loss that people face are often deep and complex. I'll dive into some of the more common ones in another video. For now, I'll discuss sort of the challenges I faced. I set this challenge up in a way that made it more manageable. It was just 28 days with very clear rules and a strong structure to follow. That level of commitment helped me avoid a lot of the common pitfalls because I was locked in. That said, the one key obstacle I did feel most was time. Between work, parenting, household responsibilities, and just wanting to be present with my family, time was always just a little bit tight. My solution, it wasn't finding extra hours in the day. It was just being more deliberate with the hours that I had available. Key reasons for my bookend approach: working out briefly first thing in the morning and last thing at night when the house is quieter. I can lock in for 10 to 15 minutes and I don't have any distractions. A secondary obstacle I found was my large appetite. I like to train, I like to be active, but I also like to eat. I like to feel full, and I hate trying to lose fat by eating like a bird. My solution: high volumes of low-calorie food and replacement foods that help me replace things such as dessert. For high volume, as mentioned earlier, I love my potatoes, sweet potatoes, and other vegetables, especially with dinner. Most fruits and vegetables are low in calorie density and can play an important part in the process. You can eat a surprisingly high volume of these types of foods while still staying within your calorie budget. I also love to mix in some low-calorie condiments like mustard, vinegar, and even, this low-calorie ketchup, which I actually quite like. Regarding my dessert replacements, as discussed earlier, my frozen low-fat yogurts were crucial for me to stay on track. If you've tried fat loss before and found it hard, you're not alone. The key is figuring out what's standing in your way, being honest with yourself about it, and then just building a structure that helps you work around things. looking back on this month, what stands out the most is not the end result, but the solidification of structures and habits that I will just continue to utilize going forward. I strongly suggest challenging yourself in a similar fashion. Try to take note of what works and what may require improvement as you go. By tracking carefully, paying attention to details, and staying consistent, you'll gain an education that you just can't get from reading or planning or watching videos like this. Every meal, every workout, every choice, they'll teach you something. And those lessons are what you'll carry going forward. And I think that's the real takeaway. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be extreme to be worth it. Even a smaller deficit or a more relaxed structure can teach you the same lessons about food, movement, and about yourself. For me, I went with a 1,000 calorie deficit this time, but if I was to do it again, I'd probably lean closer to 500. You still build the awareness, you still develop the structure, but it feels a lot more sustainable and less taxing on the body. So if you're thinking about trying something like this for yourself, my encouragement would be, don't just focus on the results. Focus on the awareness. Learn how your body responds. Pay attention to your choices you make and how they impact the process. It is a valuable education. That's where the real long-term benefit comes from. Because once you understand the process, you can always reset, realign, and keep moving forward. If you've been thinking about making a change yourself, maybe this is your sign to start, even with something small. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to look exactly like this. The most important thing is just to begin in a way that feels realistic to you. So if this video gave you something useful, whether it's motivation, ideas, or just reassurance that this process doesn't have to be overcomplicated, please stick around. I'll be sharing more videos where I break down the details and hopefully make it easier for you to find your own way. Thanks for your time. Feel free to like and subscribe, along with following me on Instagram, where I'll be sharing some more short form information.